On this episode of the Human Atavist podcast, we're going to talk about the microbiome with Briar. Hello everyone and welcome to the Human Atavist podcast. My name is Sven and here we're going to explore and follow the examples set down by our ancestors so we can truly achieve the happiness, health, and vitality that we all deserve. I hope you enjoy our journey as we discover what it means to be humans, human atavist, rewild your health, change your life. I want to remind everyone to join our movement by heading to humanatavist.com/podcast. That's human, ATAVI.st/podcast, and sign up for a copy of my latest ebook, Activate Your Nutrition. You'll also get a ton of free content to help you along your path. All right, so on today's episode, we're back with Briar again, and we're going to talk about something else a little different. We're going to talk about the microbiome and what that is exactly, where it lives.
So what is that exactly?
So what is it? I'm guessing everybody's heard of gut bacteria. I feel like leaky gut and that kind of stuff is a very popular thing to mention nowadays in the media and in all the fitness nutrition worlds. So that's what the microbiome is. It's the collective group of organisms of the bacteria and stuff that live in your gut. They live everywhere.
Yeah, it's also viruses and yeast. But yeah, a lot of the attention has been on the bacteria.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a SCOBY, right? Symbiotic community of bacteria and yeast. So does that mean kombucha is a microbiome? I think so.
Okay.
But we're talking about it in humans anyway. That's neither here nor there. So I guess to start with, we wanted to talk like a little more specifically about what it is and how they live and stuff. So like, do you want to describe like exactly like starting from the mouth maybe and going, or starting maybe on your skin or something, and describe how the microbiome affects what you do and how you live, how you digest?
That's pretty broad. Well, the microbiome is pretty much everywhere, like, especially in your digestive tract, and also on your skin. And basically you have 10 times as many bacterial cells as you do human cells. So these bacteria basically outnumber you 10 to 1. And they have a lot of effects. On your digestion. They produce different nutrients, things like vitamin K. 70% of your serotonin is produced in the gut.
Like which is 90% of your immune system's in your gut or something?
Mm-hmm, yeah, they play a huge part in your immune system. The skin bacteria keep your skin, kind of waterproof and, all that kind of stuff.
I assume healthy. I assume it helps you. Like if you get
it keeps
a cut,
it moisturized and
then it helps you heal.
Yeah. We couldn't function without the bacteria in our guts or our skin or anywhere else.
And so, do you think that they control what we think? Do you think that? Well, okay, it kind of blurs the lines a little bit, right?
Well, they have a big part in our mood. Especially because they produce these neurotransmitters like serotonin. So they play a huge part in our mood, yeah, and they can cause, food cravings, because some bacteria and, yeast especially feed off of sugar. And so they'll actually, if you have an overgrowth of these certain kinds of bacteria or yeast, they will...
Like candida.
Yeah, they will cause you to crave sugar in order to feed them.
Mm-hmm. So that being said, wouldn't, like, say... you don't eat something for, I don't know, your whole childhood, or you don't eat something for a long period of time, but then you start, I don't know, maybe getting cravings, or you start wanting to eat. I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, for example, when you were first pregnant and I remember getting cravings for olives, and I don't think I'd ever eaten olives, but then I used to just get jars and eat it. And like, was that because I had developed some kind of gut bacteria that maybe started craving something that had that similar flavor or something? Or like,
I mean,
what
I'm
about
not sure in the
what about
man's
pregnant
case
women who crave, like, what is it, laundry detergent or something like that?
well, that's a kind of different issue. That's
That's not gut bacteria related.
no, I don't think that's. I think that's more of a detox / iron thing. But I've heard both detox and iron. But
Okay.
I'm not sure about the man in that kind of case, and the wife being pregnant. I don't know if it would be a change in bacteria or if it's more of a psychological thing. But
Well, don't they
olives are
control what we
fermented,
want?
so.
Don't they control what we crave?
Well, yeah. I'm just saying in that particular case, I'm not sure.
So what would be a case of where you would crave something and they would be responsible?
Well, like I just said, the sugar thing, especially.
Well, yeah, but that's like a bad thing. If you start really craving sugar, that's probably not ideal, right?
Well, no, obviously not. That would just be perpetuating the imbalance in the bacteria and everything that you have. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure they would also make you, different strains would probably also make you crave good things as well. Whatever they in particular thrive off of and what they need to reproduce.
Do you think it's what maybe lives, like if you eat a salad, it's what lives on the lettuce that you start craving? Like, or maybe what the bacteria that was on the salad is what you start populating your colon.
Well, yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, bacteria is on all the food that we eat. So yeah, I mean, you're I guess ingesting those whatever bacteria is on your food, and so that's going to be populating your gut. And some strains of bacteria stay for longer than others, but because you have kind of like this base population, and then you have what you're eating, which usually passes through more quickly.
So, I mean, just curious, does that mean that some of them live longer than others, or does that just mean that some of them reproduce faster, or like you say, some of them hang around more? I wasn't exactly sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact mechanism, but
okay. Well, how? All right, so we need these pets to live, right?
Yeah, our pets, our little pets.
So how do we feed our pets?
Well, there's a lot of things really, but one major way is, the food we eat. I'm pretty sure that your gut bacteria can change, species and everything within a few hours or a couple days. You can kind of repopulate your gut basically based on what you eat. So, I mean, again, if you're eating a lot of sugar and processed foods, then you're going to be feeding, certain populations. Whereas if you eat, a traditional diet with a, good variety of foods, then you're going to be feeding different ones. And so you'll end up with different populations. And so you can change this pretty quickly.
Do you think there's a certain population we should strive to have? Like, I mean, of course, not like exact species, but should we strive to have the ones that thrive on traditional diets?
Well, yeah. Yeah, because those are the ones that, again, we, evolved with, and that really, I guess, contribute the most to our health. We've co-evolved with these organisms.
Mm-hmm. So, I don't know.
And then there's also other things besides food. There's a lot of bacteria in soil, so, outdoor exposure where you're around natural settings with soil, that's also a great way to populate not only your gut bacteria but your skin.
What about
a lot of indigenous cultures would do like mud baths, and other animals do mud baths and rub themselves with dirt, and I think that's probably part of the reason.
Are there any others like water, like streams or something that we would naturally use to populate our gut? What about?
Yeah, I mean, we weren't drinking sterile water, so yeah.
And like, I guess eating intestines of other animals, I'm sure.
Well, that's a great source of fermented foods and bacteria from the leftover feces and everything. So.
Okay, so now we haven't really talked about fermented food. Maybe we should try to cover some fermented foods that you actually can eat that would help positively impact your gut bacteria and your microbiome.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too popular today to eat, raw intestines with the inside still in. So, yeah, like popular ones today are like sauerkraut and kombucha and kimchi, yogurt, things like that.
So what's your favorite?
My favorite personally?
I still think of that sauerkraut that we had when we first started doing the GAPS diet a long time ago. When we would have soups and we would put sauerkraut in our soup. I still think that that's probably my favorite.
Yeah, I also like kombucha. I think sauerkraut and kombucha are kind of tied for me.
So now, that sauerkraut was one that we actually fermented ourselves with a fermentation crock. Is there a certain batch that you like? Did you like that one, or do you like some of those local ones that we get? Or
I like some of the local ones that we get, depending on the flavor. I don't like this, what do we have now? Garlicky greens or whatever.
Yeah, garlicky greens from Farmstead Ferments, I guess is what the company's called.
Yeah, but I like the fennel one. I like fennel in general, so.
Yeah, the fennel one was pretty good. I liked that turmeric one that we had.
Yeah.
What about kombucha? Is your favorite the kind that we used to make ourselves with our own mother, or is it the ones like the GT's kombucha that we get at the store?
I like both. I mean, I really like the ones with the chia seeds.
Yeah,
so.
we never actually tried to put chia seeds in the ones that we made.
Yeah.
We started trying to make different kinds of teas, but we never advanced beyond that.
Yeah.
So, all right, kombucha, kimchi, sauerkraut,
yogurt,
like pickles.
Yeah, well, as long as it's not pasteurized, like most of the ones that you find in stores. Same thing with sauerkraut, really.
It's got to be refrigerated in the store.
Right, unpasteurized.
Of course, some of the yogurts that you get in the store, they've been pasteurized and then they had cultures added back to them. Is that the same?
There's not going to be as diverse, species of bacteria. You're only adding in one or two cultures, but whereas if you didn't pasteurize it, it'd be, there'd be more strains of bacteria, more diverse strains.
So all of them have, like, pretty much everything that you get in the store has lactobacillus in it.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for that? Is that what indigenously, like, floats around in the air and populates, like, don't you lacto ferment stuff?
Yeah, it's present everywhere. Like that bacteria is present, in the air and in, on food. Mm-hmm. It's everywhere. So yeah, it's one of the.
Is it one of the main ones that's in our gut?
Like, yeah, I believe so. And it's been linked to, better health outcomes. Healthier people have more of this bacteria.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that's why some of the recipes for fermenting call for whey? I don't know if there's a difference or a connection between milk, lactose, lactobacillus. I don't know where all that comes from, but do you think that's why?
I guess I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
But.
I don't know either. So now another word that I hear thrown around a lot is prebiotics. What's the difference between probiotic and prebiotic?
Well, the prebiotic is like the thing that you're fermenting.
So should you eat that, or should?
Well, yeah. Because when a bacteria ferments, say a cabbage to make sauerkraut, it's making the nutrients more available and it's adding nutrients to it.
So it's almost like cooking it.
What?
It's like oxidizing or cooking it. It's like it's being pre-digested.
It's pre-digesting it, yeah. So that cabbage will now be more nutritious because the bacteria fermented it, as opposed to just straight up eating cabbage. It's more nutritious.
So would the sauerkraut... Okay, so when you ferment something, I guess the bacteria completely penetrates it. So you can't just eat like one, shred of sauerkraut, because that'll be covered in probiotics, but that's not considered prebiotics. Prebiotic is what you put into it, right?
They're together, but...
Yeah. I was thinking like drinking sauerkraut brine would be the probiotic, but I guess it's in the...
Well, there's also nutrients from the cabbage in it too, so...
Mm-hmm. And it makes it more bioavailable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, can you ferment anything?
Some things are better to ferment than others.
Yeah, because we did fish that one time, and
it
was raw salmon.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the time that we were finished fermenting it, it had turned from that raw bright pink astaxanthin salmon color, it turned from that into what it would actually look like when we cook it. It had turned more of that, I don't know, paler kind of like white filmy looking, yeah, I don't know how to describe it, but it looked like it had been cooked and we had just stuck it in a jar.
Yeah, and it had developed that, sour fermented taste. It was really good, actually.
Yeah, I like the onions we stuck in there.
Yeah, I think it was a little too oniony for my taste, but
yeah, I don't know why I like onions so much. I guess it's my pets that like them, right?
Yeah,
Aren't
maybe.
they supposed to be rich and that kind of thing? So you say that they live everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So can you distinguish between our bacteria that live within us and ourselves?
What do you mean?
Is there, like, if we were, I don't know, completely sterilized and didn't have any of it, would we still be ourselves?
Well,
wouldn't we start repopulating instantly?
Most likely. You'd probably get sick also.
I guess that would be the same as like taking out an organ, right?
Yeah, I mean, these bacteria do so many things to help keep us healthy, including making nutrients and such. So, yeah, I mean, if you actually managed to remain, completely sterile, you'd probably die pretty quickly. You'd get very ill. You'd probably
get a lot of deficiencies too.
Yeah.
So I think a common view that people have is that there's us and them, but it's not separate. We co-evolve together, right? That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, you can't really think of humans without these bacteria because, again, they outnumber us 10 to 1. I mean, we're really like a whole ecosystem of organisms.
So, coevolution, why don't we mention that for just a second to kind of give context to this, to how they're not separate from us. So when I don't even remember who it was, but when the term that was coined, survival of the fittest, that's not accurate, right?
Well, I mean, there's some truth to it, but yeah, that kind of assumes that there's just a few key species that compete with each other.
Yeah, there's
and
like a top and there's a bottom, and you try to get to the top, and that's not really how it works.
Right, it's not. There's a whole web. I don't know if that's even an accurate terminology, but...
Yeah, because it would be like saying, like, is a human or a bear? Like, which one is the on top of the food chain? Because bears eat humans and humans eat bears, but I don't really...
Well, I don't know if bears really eat humans.
Well, they don't like seek out and kill humans,
no.
But
yeah, you can't just say that one's on
one
top
is
of the chain.
Superior.
Yeah, it's more complicated than that.
And again, wouldn't you say that we are? Would you? I don't know if this is accurate. Would you say that we are vehicles for our bacteria to drive?
In a way, yeah. You could probably say that everything is bacteria driven. I mean, bacteria have been here for, 4 billion years? I mean, they know how to adapt and evolve, and they create the weather, essentially.
How do they create the weather? I don't know this.
I'm not sure the exact mechanism. I'd have to look it up again. It's in Plant Intelligence and the Imaginal Realm by Stephen Buhner. But yeah, I couldn't completely quote it to you.
Well, come on, you bring something up. I don't know. But is it something they essentially cause like evaporation or something like that?
Yeah, and then they cause the cloud cover. Yeah, essentially. But again, I'm not 100% positive on the mechanisms there. I'd have to look it up to be accurate. But
I was just thinking that like your body, your gut is where you make all of these hormones and neurotransmitters, right? And they affect how your brain works, and they affect what you seek out, like to eat and that kind of stuff. So couldn't they control what you thought? and did, I mean, you would still think that you were in control, but really they would be, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's elements of both. I don't think it's just one or the other. I mean, just like there's no one on top of the other with a food chain. It's not like they are controlling us completely, but
Yeah, well, they need us to be alive symbiosis. To live.
Well, yeah, they need us and we need them. So
coevolution.
It's symbiosis, yeah.
So another like trait of coevolution would be, I mean, even something like what, I don't know, deer and humans, you know, like if we hadn't co-evolved together, then, well, of course, barring anything else coming in and taking the humans' role in this, but wouldn't the deer population get like crazy out of control, and then they'd start having all of the, like, I don't know, you know, massive diseases, and like, wouldn't it be worse for the deer if the humans weren't here to help keep the population smaller?
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's always a balance. We help keep them balanced. Just like everything else, you know?
Okay. Yeah, I've wondered about that. Like, everything that happens would have happened for a reason. We would have co-evolved because it was like more beneficial that way, right?
Right. Yeah, that's how, that's, I guess, the most beneficial thing for everybody involved, you know, for the environment as a whole. So that's why it happened that way.
Yeah. So you mentioned plant intelligence. Let's just talk about one or two things from that real quick. It was a very interesting book, and I didn't read it, but you explained a lot of it to me, and it's definitely on my bookshelf to start reading. It's just such a massive tome.
It goes by fast. It's an easy read.
Yeah. So
most of it.
Like, he mentioned in there that bacteria, is it just bacteria? They build cities?
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of this assumption in our culture that bacteria are, you know, again, something like evil to be conquered, and that they're just kind of this like background thing that we can just like eliminate. But they're a lot more intelligent than we give them credit for. You know, like I said, they've been around for 4 billion years. And so I don't think we are intelligent or powerful enough to wipe them off the face of the earth. I mean, they adapt extremely quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they do, you know. They're very intelligent, and they do things like basically build cities. And they have like these insulated electrical cables to heat the cities, you know. They use tools basically. You know, it's commonly said that primates are the only, you know, I guess organisms to use tools, but that's not true.
Yeah, so they actually, like, I guess, have large clusters that, I don't even know how cities would be built, but they have like large clusters, and then they actually heat them and stuff.
Yeah.
And
I'm guessing, I think a lot of this is down at the, you know, deep sea vents, you know, so they use the heat from that or something. Yeah, next to the
tubes or whatever, tube worms and the thermal vents. And,
yeah, the thermal vents, yeah.
Doesn't he also say that it's almost like a collective? It's not a bunch of, like, you know, trillions and trillions of different bacteria. Doesn't he say that it's all one?
Well, yeah, if you look at it from a certain, you know, perspective, if you kind of back up a little, yeah, there's essentially, you know, an entire, you know, bacteria are also extremely communicative. They can communicate extremely rapidly and well with each other. So, you know, again, from a certain perspective, it's kind of like they form one whole organism. You know, just like even though we have tons of organisms and cells and everything within ourselves, we still consider ourselves one organism. And then you could also consider the human race as one organism. You know, we now network kind of like bacteria.
Yeah,
you know,
really intense.
Instantly.
Over vast distances. And
right. So bacteria are kind of comparable to that. But
so what's a step back from that, from the humans as a race being an organism?
Well, you can say that about any species, and then any, you know, locale, like your local habitat, your local ecosystem, you could say that about. And then if you take even a step further,
So
you
like
could
the
say
Shenandoah Valley, and then
yeah,
you would say the Appalachian Mountains,
right.
and you could say the Eastern Seaboard, and
yeah, and then you could ultimately, well, not ultimately, but you could say, the Earth is one organism because we all communicate with each other, and yeah, it's one whole living system,
Yeah, and like focusing on that for a second is a really interesting point. Doesn't he say that, like, if you were to look at one person, we've got bacteria in our gut, in our skin, everywhere.
Viruses and yeast.
Yeah, like everything.
Yeah.
We've got it everywhere, and that's just one
Parasites.
of us. So you would say that they were included in this one thing. So wouldn't like each species of animal and plant, they would also be like...
They would be like a cell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like we are the Earth's cells.
Yeah, and we all...
Then we are composed of cells, and then those cells are composed of, the organelles.
Because we all work for a common goal, right? Unknowingly.
Well, potentially, yeah.
Isn't that the point he makes?
Yeah, well, one theory that he proposed was that, you can consider the Earth potentially a, living organism because it is maybe trying to reproduce because, up until now, the Earth has spread bacteria and, spores and whatnot through like volcanoes and stuff, and that can be compared to wind pollination. Yeah, it's very unlikely that these these bacteria spores or anything will actually be carried to another planet.
It's
but
possible, I suppose.
It's possible. There's a one in however many trillion chance. But
if you look at like that major, I can never remember its name. That major volcano that happened in Indonesia. Togo. Toba.
Something.
Yeah, that one. And it would have covered the, Indian 15 feet of ash, whatever that one was. But I'm sure that when it erupted, there was stuff that went into space.
Oh, yeah, with pretty much any volcano, substantial volcano that goes into space.
So would it be first to like try to get stuff on the moon maybe and have some bacteria living on the moon maybe, and then moving on to other planets? Like it's trying to take hold in a different place.
Yeah, it's trying to send out its bacteria to other planets in order to, quote unquote, reproduce. But then, his theory is that, humans, kind of the role that we fill for the Earth is potentially, and like why we have such an obsession with, technology and exploring space and that kind of stuff is because maybe it's a more direct form of, the Earth being able to reproduce, because we inevitably, carry these bacteria spores and whatnot on ourselves, and we bring them directly to other planets.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like bees, we're like the bees of the Earth.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Like if you were to think of the Apollo missions that went to the moon, it's not like they had a completely sterile vacuum that they put their space suits I'm sure on. They would probably just put them in the cabin, like they just stuck them on, and they would have had bacteria from living in the cabin, and it would have gotten on the outside, and it would have gotten on the moon.
Yeah, even if you try to sterilize it, it's not, you can't completely kill off the bacteria. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty interesting to think of the Earth, and isn't that almost the way that hunter-gatherers would have really thought of nature, maybe through animism? Like everything is kind of connected, and
everything's connected, everything has a kind of spirit,
and there was almost like a reverence in killing stuff because they know that we're all co-evolving. They wouldn't think of it in those terms, but yeah. Is there anything else that he talked about with bacteria and plant intelligence that you can think of?
Well, he talked about a ton of stuff, but you'll just have to read the book to find out all of that. But yeah, I think those were the kind of standout things for me, at least.
Yeah. That's, I don't know, incredible that they can do all of that, and that they use tools and
they communicate.
So.
With the whole antibiotic thing now, we're really kind of not realizing what we're doing. because again, like I said, we kind of view, bacteria and even, any other species of anything as kind of a backdrop, like we're, the actors on a stage and everything else is kind of just as backdrop, and we're the only ones who actually like, make effects on things. But, we haven't really realized, again, that bacteria are going to adapt, and they adapt much more quickly than we do. And so with the antibiotics, it's like we're trying to kill them off, but they exchange genetic material with each other, even between species of bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can adapt really quickly that way. So, if one strain of bacteria, develops some kind of trick in order to, avoid the effects of an antibiotic, and so it's, more likely to, be able to be resistant to it, then it'll pass on that trait.
Yeah, it like tells other bacteria how to do that, right?
Yeah, it gives the other bacteria that genetic trick,
So if one can figure it out, then
Then
all
they
of
all
them
can.
Yeah. And so that's why it happens so quickly, right?
Yeah, and that's why we've got these super bugs just from, a couple decades of using antibiotics.
And what about jumping species? Isn't that like a way of population control? Like you could say that
Oh, right, yeah.
that they like it would be equivalent to us hunting deer. It's like they're trying to, I don't know.
Well, I think that was a little more with viruses.
Oh, really? I don't know
I
that.
think so.
I don't know much about either of them. I've watched Jimmy Neutron, so I've seen how viruses work, but
Sure, it's an accurate picture.
well, I'm pretty sure that, the actual like viruses they had in that show were like legit. They had like the little domes, and then they had like little fingers and came down and crawled around. I'm pretty sure that's what they actually look like.
Well, some of them, viruses and bacteria have some really interesting shapes to them.
They're like fractals or something. Dude.
But yeah, viruses will, like say they're kind of co-evolving with this one, population of, monkeys or something. And, they're co-evolving with them. So they're not really killing off the monkeys. They're just kind of using them. Maybe they'll make them a little sick or something, but it's not a big deal for them. But then, a new species of monkey comes in to that, land area. The virus can jump species and go to that new monkeys, and they'll just, kill them off.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll jump back to the original ones and have that same, kind of
so
mellower effect.
instead of like, they say that there were like all of these diseases that, whatever the chickens were getting or whatever it was. And, people would think that there would only be the chickens that were affected. And so they tried to keep chickens away from chickens or whatever, but they didn't think humans would get sick. But it's possible then the humans can get sick from that kind of stuff if the virus deems it necessary.
Yeah, to protect their, chickens.
Yeah, because if you think of the whole virus population as one, it's just sacrificing a little bit to grow the one.
Right, because those viruses that will jump to the new population will obviously die because their hosts will die, but then, it's for the greater good of the whole virus itself, so. For the greater good.
Yeah, for the greater good. So I guess I wanted to take this opportunity to just go over germ theory a little bit.
Yeah, well, I've kind of...
Yeah, we've touched on it.
Yeah.
And I guess what the prevailing theories of germs are, and if they're accurate or not, of, I guess, quote unquote germs, like they're these dangerous things that will only cause us harm, and we need to get rid of them. And even if some of them are good, we'd just be better without all of them.
Yeah, well, that was, that theory is based on the work of, Louis Pasteur. And he actually had a contemporary...
I think it was Louis.
Yeah, French would be Louis. But
Louis Pasteur, pasteurization.
Yeah, pasteurization. But he had a contemporary, I don't remember his name right now, but he had a contemporary who actually argued that, he did research and stuff, and he actually found that it wasn't just the bacteria that just made everything sick. It depended on the medium that it was grown on. So bacteria's bacteria did not harm or proliferate on healthy cells. It had to be sick cells. So that, just shows that, kind of the reason that people get sick is because they're not healthy. There's some kind of imbalance in them.
Mm-hmm. And so if it was a perfectly healthy person, they wouldn't have gotten sick necessarily?
Not necessarily. Probably not.
So what has this idea of good germ, bad germ, what has that done to our population? How has that affected our modern life? Like hospitals or something? Like, what about like not exposing our children? I guess I'll mention that. Like, we think that we should keep our children clean, and they shouldn't. Like, if someone gets chickenpox, you try to quarantine this child who has chickenpox so that no one else will get this. But then,
yeah, well, with things like illnesses, it's really good for children to be exposed to these because that just strengthens their immune system. And if you don't expose them to these, relatively harmless things like chickenpox, then later on, when they're an adult, they won't have that strong immune system to fight off even, more dangerous things. So that's one aspect of it. And again, you need all these bacteria to be healthy. Like we said, they do really good things for us. So if you don't let your child play in the dirt and things like that, then they're not going to be as healthy as kids who do play in the dirt. Like kids who grow up on farms are way healthier than kids who don't. And that's because of that exposure.
Because they get dirty.
And they're around animals. And so they have a much lower rate of things like allergies and asthma and things like that.
Right. I guess realistically right now, we should say that neither of us are doctors and that, you should always check with your healthcare providers, whatever, before you do anything that we say. But for example, like chickenpox, when you're a child and you get chickenpox, you get kind of itchy and it's kind of miserable for a few days, but then you're
immune to that for life.
You're immune to that. So if you get chickenpox as an adult, isn't it deadly? Like, can it be lethal?
Well, isn't that what, like measles or smallpox or something? I don't think it's.
Oh, I thought chickenpox was dangerous as an adult. I thought it could kill you.
I think it turns into one of those, isn't it?
Oh,
I think it's different. I don't know.
Well, yeah, but like, can't you also be exposed to measles as a child, and they consider it a deadly, dangerous disease, but if you are exposed as a child, it's not, right?
Right. Yeah.
Now, again, if you were a very sick child, you didn't have very good nutrition, and you didn't have a proper microbiome, then it potentially could be dangerous for a very small subset of the population. But yeah, most people who are exposed to it, it's not a big deal. You think it's like that with lots of diseases then?
Yeah, I'm sure.
So then, what about like, I guess that bleeds over into sterilizing and all that kind of stuff. As adults, you're trying to keep sick people safe, but maybe it's nature's way of trying to control the population and weed out the...
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. And then,
we're trying to control it, but we can't really control it.
No, we can't. And again, with, sterilization and stuff, look at hospitals. They're the most dangerous places to be, really, as far as illness, because since they try to sterilize everything and they use so many antibiotics, on the patients and on the, the cleaning materials and everything like that, that breeds superbugs. It, again, since bacteria adapt so quickly, they're going to become resistant to those antibiotics, and we can't keep up with it. Really. So that's why, hospitals, MRSA, like that's one of the most dangerous things because it's this resistant.
MRSA is what, like, I forget what does the M stand for?
Methicillin. It's like the
methicillin resistant staphylococcus.
Staphylococcus aureus, something like that.
Yeah.
Staph.
And it's literally just like this thing that by itself, isn't it relatively harmless? Like, you can't really do too much, but then when it becomes resistant to
the medicine, original, I guess it wouldn't be the MR part, but it'd be the staph part, The staphylococcus. Originally it probably was not really that deadly, and our antibiotics would work against it. But now, since we overprescribe antibiotics and just hand them out like candy, it
And so that is what made this
That's what
a
made
quote
it
unquote
resistant.
superbug. It was this little thing that, might have caused some kind of discomfort, but now it's just like deadly. Like if you get it, it's going to eat your flesh, and you are going to suffer massive and possibly death.
Yeah,
Massive
possibly.
pain, and it turns into this horrible.
I don't know how painful it is and whatnot, but yeah.
Doesn't it eat your flesh?
I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure it does.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. You could probably watch an episode of House and figure that out. Probably has some sort of epiphany and is like, oh, it's MRSA. No, it's probably something Foreman suggests and calls him dumb. But
yeah, and then it ends up being right.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll take a break real quick, and we'll come back and finish this talk on the microbiome. Fun.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you for all your support, and please head over to iTunes, leave me a review, tell me what you think of the show. I appreciate it.
And we're back. So, where do you want to pick up at?
Well, I think we were kind of dancing around an issue that we weren't really directly talking about, but I think I was being kind of reminded of, and that's vaccines. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So the idea of vaccines is that there are diseases that are out there that people have that you try to prevent by making them immune from the beginning or something like that. And is that effective?
That's kind of a interesting question.
Would you say that that's what the point of vaccines are?
Well, that's the stated purpose of them, but the independent research has kind of shown that it is not necessarily effective or safe. And vaccines is a really huge topic. I'm sure we could do a whole podcast
Show
about
on
that. But
yeah. Well, why does it say, like, whenever you pass a store, it always says, whatever, make yourself healthy, get a flu shot, or whatever, do yourself a favor, protect your family, get a flu shot,
Because that's what will make the pharmaceutical companies money. But flu vaccines especially are definitely not effective because they're having to develop the vaccine, before the flu season comes around, and they don't really know which strain of the flu it'll be, and so by their own admission, it's not necessarily effective. If they get the strain wrong, then it's not going to be really effective at all.
And that's because we've been vaccinating, so now the flu vaccine in particular mutates much faster.
Well, yeah, I mean, any kind of virus or bacteria is going to, again, mutate very fast. But yeah, the flu virus is one that particularly adapts fast, yeah. And there's just a lot of different, diverse strains of it.
And if you look at the instance of diseases occurring within populations, it was on the decline when they introduced vaccines. So when they show the charts that say that they're effective, if you scale that back hundreds of years, you can see that it's just like the very tip of a downward slope. So it wasn't that vaccines were effective, it's that a lot of these were on the decline, right?
Yeah, most of them were already on the decline when the vaccine was introduced. And so, I think like measles was, declined by, I don't know, probably 80-90%. And then, the vaccine comes in and they take all the credit for eliminating it when that's really not the case. And, if you look at the graphs, the charts that show the, dates and everything, they'll just scale it, like you said, so that the graph starts when the vaccine was introduced, and then, it further declines. And so it makes it look like that's what caused the decline. But then if you add in the, however many decades before, then you can see that it was way higher and it was already steeply declining.
Yeah. And how do vaccines really affect your immune system then? I'm sure it's a real barrage, right?
Well, yeah.
Especially like the Tdap and
yeah,
the
all
MAR
these combination vaccines, yeah. Especially when you consider that you're introducing them to newborn babies, who are, already protected by their mother's immune system. So they wouldn't even need.
So if the mothers had gotten, like, say, the measles or something when they were a child, it wouldn't have really harmed the mother. They would have had the antibodies and stuff for it.
Yeah, and then they
would have
pass
passed
that down to their baby, you know, especially if you breastfeed. You know, for the first 6 months, you're passing down all of your antibodies. So whatever you're immune to, your baby will be immune to as well.
Plus natural birth. I think cesarean section actually changes that, right? Doesn't the passage down the vaginal canal, the birthing canal, doesn't all of those like mucus layers and even like fecal and stuff, doesn't all that affect the child's immune system?
Well, yeah, through the
Doesn't that bolster
microbiome. You know, that's where you get your original microbiome, because
So they populate their gut from their mothers.
Yeah, because in the womb you don't have that gut bacteria, but yeah, when you're born, that's where you acquire it.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. So then how would hunter-gatherers, would they have done vaccines? Would they have tried to prevent diseases from happening, or would they have just let stuff run its course?
Well, kind of all of those minus the vaccines, but you know, they would have, you know, obviously had a very good diet and lifestyle, so that their chances of, you know, getting these diseases are very small. And plus, when you consider, you know, these diseases are really a main problem in civilizations, just because we're so crowded together. That's what, you know, makes them spread. So the rate of, you know, bacterial and viral infections in hunter-gatherer populations is much lower.
So is it a coincidence that the more concentrated a population is, the more disease they have?
No, I mean, again, it spreads more quickly like that. So there's more people there.
And
so.
Is nature trying to lower the population quicker or something? Is that why you think that happens? Would that be why Stephen Herod Buhner would say,
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that could be a part of it.
if everything's an ecosystem and having whatever 7 million people living on Long Island, like if they want to reduce the population, it's just going to have a lot more diseases than normal, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially if you have unhealthy people. So.
Yeah. And like one other thing, like in this disease thing that I had heard a theory of, was that STDs, if you are healthy, you have a really heightened immune system, you know, you're eating a traditional wild diet, don't those not affect you as much? Isn't that a theory, at least? That
yeah, I mean, potentially. I mean, the same thing with any other
stuff.
kind of bacteria and virus infection, whatever.
Mm-hmm. So like HIV, if you had a high immune system, it would not necessarily affect you?
Not necessarily. I haven't
know.
looked much
I haven't
into
either.
HIV in particular. I know there's a lot of controversy out there about it, but
yeah, but that would be definitely interesting.
Yeah.
And maybe explain why some people, like Magic Johnson, has been able to live for years and years and years, you know, like whatever, 20, 30 years. I don't even know how long with HIV. He doesn't even have AIDS. He just has HIV and he's had it the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same, you know, if you test the antibodies of people, you know, most people will probably have antibodies to, you know, any kind of given infection, even though they've never had the symptoms from it. But then a small percentage of the population will get really sick from it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking in particular of, let's see.
I can't read your mind right now. I'm not sure.
No, I'm trying to think. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's the one that a lot of people in college get. It's like the kissing disease or whatever. What is it called?
Wasn't that syphilis?
No,
that
not
was
syphilis.
Cupid's disease.
No, it's like it starts with an M, I think, and it's like a cough, like a really bad cough.
I'm not sure.
I don't know, meningitis? No, not meningitis. I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't remember. But
inflammation of the meninges, right? Isn't that what meningitis is?
no, and maybe it's not that. I don't know. But It's one of those. But yeah, most people, you know, they hardly get symptoms from it, but then, or like maybe they have a cough for a week or something, but then some people just like are crippled by it for years or months or years, you know.
Do you have any idea what the difference between being a carrier and being an active person is? Like, is a carrier someone who has a heightened immune system and just carries around antibodies, or do you think that their immune system never responded to it or something? Or do you have any idea? It's kind of out of left field, but
I mean, I'm guessing they would have a stronger immune system, and I'm sure it's more complicated than just that, but for some reason they are able to, deal with it better. I don't know.
And don't some things, like especially viruses, can't they mutate your DNA in your cells?
Probably.
Like sharing genetic information. Like, I'm trying to think, like when they genetically modify stuff, don't they sometimes give them viruses so that it breaks down their DNA?
Yeah, that's one way they do it for bacteria. Well, I mean, viruses don't have DNA, but
they have RNA.
Yeah.
So now, okay, this is something else that's sidelong. Like, didn't originally, before cells were formed, wasn't it some kind of DNA that I guess it absorbed some kind of virus, and this virus became the mitochondria? So that's why the cell actually carries the DNA and the mitochondria carries the RNA, because they're two separate sets of
I think
DNA,
it's bacteria,
right?
but yeah.
Bacteria.
I think a few of the organelles inside of cells were,
it was like an
formed that way.
amoeba type thing that just absorbed other stuff.
Yeah, because that's kind of how they eat, I guess. I don't know. They can just absorb whole other bacteria, so kind of strange, really.
Yeah,
bacteria are interesting.
Yeah, I always think of looking at them through a microscope, like I did in biology with Miss, I don't even remember her name now. Wagner? Miss Wagner or something?
I didn't have her.
Oh.
I had Coach Hill.
Oh, right. Yeah, and you weren't on the softball team, so you probably didn't really get good grades in that class. No, you were smart, so you did.
I'm sure I got an A, but I didn't learn anything. There's a difference.
Yeah, I remember one time he had told the team if they won states that he'd let him shave his mustache, so they actually shaved it in stripes. So he had a handlebar mustache, but then he had just like lines where they had shaved it bare. Nice. Whatever.
Anyways.
High school. That's crazy. So is there anything in particular hunter-gatherers would actually eat to try to help their immune system? Like, would they focus on eating mushrooms, or?
I don't know if that's the way that they would view it.
I don't know how they viewed any kind of food, honestly. Like, they knew that pregnant women and babies and kids should eat different stuff than everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, they viewed, certain foods, especially when it came to reproduction and stuff, as, sacred, sacred life forms. I know that one tribe in Africa considered liver so sacred that they couldn't touch it with their hands, and so they would just spear it on a stick or something and cook it like that and eat it from there, because they considered it so sacred.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, again, I'm not sure if they would view it in terms of like this reductionist approach of like, oh, this food helps my immune system, but
So what kind of like fungus did they have in Africa? They had to have had something, right?
Fungus? I'm sure they have mushrooms. I don't know. Mushrooms are kind of universal. So.
Yeah. I mean, whenever I think of a mushroom, I think of going through the woods, like Native Americans around here would have eaten mushrooms, of course, but I imagine
they don't
stuff
only
that grows
grow
on
in woods. They grow in grasslands too. And cow dung, so and in other herbivore. British? Yeah, I felt like saying dung. Yeah. So I mean,
I guess that's true. Like fairy mushrooms just grow in rings wherever, in yards and stuff.
Yeah, and farmlands, which is essentially grasslands,
prairie.
So prairie. Yeah, I mean, mushrooms can grow anywhere really.
So there was nothing they would do specifically that would actually, they would be trying to heighten.
I mean, I'm sure that they had things that specific foods that they knew, did specific things. Like I know that some Native American groups knew that the adrenal glands would help prevent scurvy, and they were conscious of that. Right. They didn't know that it was because of this compound called vitamin C, but yeah, they knew things like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure they knew that, things like mushrooms would help you, not get sick in these certain ways. But yeah,
Right.
mushrooms are a big immune system booster. That's probably one of the best ways, along with some herbs.
Yeah, I'll say didn't they actually develop herbalism because they actually, I mean, of course they got sick, but it wasn't like us today.
Yeah, and it's not like, in these indigenous cultures, food and medicine and, also, quote unquote drugs were, all along kind of a spectrum. They were kind of blurred together.
Yeah, I had written something that talked about Hippocrates, let medicine be thy food and let food be thy medicine. And that was saying that, their medicine would have actually been their food because their food would have had the bitter compounds and it would have had medicinal properties because it was more wild. They would have had a few domesticated crops, but nothing like we would have had today.
Yeah, where we've bred out all of our medicine from our food.
And you have iceberg lettuce and
yeah, that's not medicine, people. If you're living off of iceberg lettuce, then you're not having that medicine.
yeah. And it's kind of strange because everybody says, "Oh, if the first time you eat kale, it's pretty bitter. I don't think you're gonna like it." And it's like, man, I eat it and I don't even taste anything. It tastes like lettuce to me just because it's like if I eat something like dock or elderberry or something like that, it's just like bam, bitter flavor.
Yeah, well, I mean, with that in particular, of course, we should all aim to have better foods in our diet, but there's also a genetic thing where some people taste bitter compounds more than others.
Yeah. I think we talked about that last week a little bit, didn't we?
We talked about bitter foods, yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to learn more about bitter foods, listen to the podcast from last week. I think it was podcast number 3. But one thing that I don't know, I had asked you this earlier, but why is it that some diseases are bad, like malaria and it's really bad. If you look at what was it, Angkor in wherever that is, Vietnam, Thailand, I don't know, Myanmar, whichever, it was one of those countries, wherever that was. They had these this was an ancient city, and they had built up all of these rice paddy fields right in the middle of the city. So, and it was hot, and I think that was around this time that they did this was when, for some reason, the climate shifted and they started having a wet season and a dry season, so it just bred mosquitoes.
Good job, guys.
Yeah, it's just like they set that up perfect, and then they started having
perfect
malaria.
for the mosquitoes.
Yeah. But why is that? Is that just because when some bacteria metabolize stuff, it's toxic for us and it harms us, it hurts our liver and stuff? Or I
I guess so. I'm not sure the exact reasons why some can be bad and some cannot, but yeah, I mean,
I guess coevolution. If we'd have evolved with malaria, it wouldn't bother us.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the areas highest, in malaria as far as prevalence, you do find that people have adapted, sometimes too much, as in sickle cell anemia, but that's where that comes from. Sickle cell anemia actually protects you from malaria.
I thought it was tuberculosis.
No.
Yeah, but people who have the trait, so I guess that's kind of where we're in the middle of adapting.
Yeah, I think it's like a 1 gene, 2 gene thing. Like if you have the 2 genes, you'll actually have active sickle cell anemia. But if you have just the 1 gene, then
and you wouldn't be able to carry oxygen very well. But if you only have the one pair or whatever it is, you'll have a resistance.
Protection against the malaria, yeah.
Because the pathway travels.
Yeah, but only, I think it's 1% of bacteria can even cause you harm. And even then, it doesn't cause most people harm.
Right.
So
it's
really not something to be terrified of and want to wipe out all bacteria.
Yeah. And I guess that made me think of, isn't it Mark Sisson who, which, I mean, he's a great resource. You can check him out at Mark's Daily Apple. But he's the one who talks about there being this fictional hunter-gatherer, I forgot what he names him,
Like grok or something.
Yeah, and like this guy was perfectly adapted to his environment, but we were never like that. We were
No.
always in the middle of evolving right when it happened. Like right now, we're in the middle of evolving, to, I don't even know, being able to sit in chairs and eat processed foods. We're not there yet. We're really struggling, and we're trying to get there, but
Not
we're
that
not
you
there
should,
yet.
try to adapt to that necessarily. But
Yeah, because what we're trying to do is activate our genes in a positive way. And so that's just taking our past and applying it to our present. But the fact that hunter-gatherers would have been perfectly adapted for every situation.
Yeah,
because,
it'd definitely not happen.
Yeah, that's like Flintstoneizing it.
Yeah. You're adapted to what your ancestors were adapted to, but your habitat is always changing. So you're never up to date with your current habitat,
So what other detriments of modern living do we have? Is it just, I don't even know, living in close proximity and sterilizing everything? Are those the main problems we have? Is there anything else that...
You mean as far as diseases or like your gut bacteria?
Well, and I was thinking negative effects of bacteria, but I mean, we can also talk about positive effects of bacteria for modern living.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of... I guess
there's less grass and less dirt and stuff. Just
good observation.
Well, yeah. And whoever it is had quoted that when Columbus first came to America, if you were a squirrel, you could have jumped from tree to tree all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast, and definitely not anymore. You couldn't even. I don't even go
100 feet.
Yeah, see, I don't even know if you could get on a tree from the beach anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors that, have kind of, I mean, pretty much every aspect of our modern living kind of has some kind of negative effect on, either disease prevalence or your gut bacteria or skin bacteria. Just the fact that most of us, shower every day. That, is with soap, like that strips away your gut or your skin bacteria.
What about like deodorant and toothpaste and that kind of stuff?
I'm sure that probably has an effect too. Also, this is kind of a side thing, I guess, but if you wash yourself after being outside, you make vitamin D out in the sunshine. Oh, yeah. And it actually takes about 48 hours to actually convert and absorb all that vitamin D like into your body.
From your skin, from the bacteria on your skin, I guess. Because you photosynthesize the vitamin D.
Yeah,
right, with the cholesterol.
Cholesterol, yeah. But so it takes about 48 hours. But if you shower within that 48 hours and you use, soap, it'll actually just strip away that vitamin D. So do not bathe very often, people.
Well,
not with soap.
One thing that I try to do is I try to take these lessons that we've learned and apply them so that we can live better now, live better today.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we can do, any kind of stuff that we can put into practice that you can call out and get people to do, like starting today, that'll help them with their microbiome, help them with their immune system and with their hormones and all that kind of stuff?
I would say the main things would be to stop eating processed foods.
Yeah.
Especially sugar.
Move your diet towards...
Don't take antibiotics.
Yeah.
Unless it's some kind of, life-threatening thing, then obviously, get to a doctor. But
yeah, and it would probably be better in that case to have more of a specific antibiotic. Like if you had a disease and like Lyme's disease or whatever, to take an antibiotic that would help that, right?
Lyme's disease is kind of another thing that you can cure Lyme disease with herbal.
I suppose
remedies.
That's one of those like chronic fatigue syndrome where it's just like a blanket.
Yeah, it's not going to kill you immediately. So
I was going to say it was a blanket term that's given to a lot of conditions, and they don't really have like, they say, ticks can give it to you, but then it's like some people have it and it doesn't affect them, and
yeah, everybody reacts differently to that.
Anyway, that was just an aside. I wasn't trying to get into a topic on Lyme's disease, but instead of taking a broad spectrum antibiotic.
Well, yeah, it depends on what kind of sickness you have. If they know what your sickness is,
Mm-hmm.
that just depends. But anyway, yeah, if you can help it, don't take antibiotics. Get off the processed food, especially the sugar. Eat fermented foods. That's definitely a big one.
Eat them every day, every meal? Is
I
there a
mean,
limit?
Well,
I'm
they're
guessing
kind of meant to be used as condiments, because if you eat just like a whole meal of
like a chili dog,
sauerkraut,
right?
then you might have some digestive issues. But
yeah. Well, I think that with fermented foods, one good thing to test is that you'll be able to tell how much you can stand, because you'll be able to tell how loose your stool is the next day.
yeah,
And so
and even just taste as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Nobody's going to want to eat a whole bowl of sauerkraut. So.
Yeah, it'll become adverse at some point.
Yeah.
But you can just try to eat a little bit every day. I would start with just a small amount, a forkful of sauerkraut.
Yeah.
And then if you respond well to that, do 2 forkfuls, and then try whatever, quarter of a cup, and then move up from there.
Yeah, definitely. So then another thing would be to get outside in nature, expose yourself to, soil and things like that. And, as far as skin bacteria, I know it's like a big like taboo in our culture, but you really don't need to wash with soap. I mean, if it really makes you more comfortable, you can wash like your armpits and, genitals or whatever. But I mean, you really don't need soap.
Yeah.
Because your skin bacteria will essentially, keep you clean.
Yeah. And,
especially if you're eating well and stuff, you're probably not going to produce too much of a nasty body odor,
When was the last time that you used straight up deodorant? It's probably, for me, it's been probably 6 months to a year.
For me, it's been at least a year, probably a year and a half.
Yeah. Because I had tried that herbal stuff that my parents had gotten. They wanted me to try it.
Yeah.
It was a little different getting used to it after I hadn't done it for a while before that. And I mean, we use coconut oil.
Yeah, in the summer I used coconut oil mixed with a little bit of essential oil. But then in the winter I've stopped even that.
Yeah, and also like another thing, if you have a good diet, it's going to change the way that you smell, that you give off body odor. If you have a bad diet when you work out, or even when you're just sitting down, you'll give off a stronger odor, and it'll be unpleasant. But if you have a clean diet, if you sweat, it'll still be, kind of salty feeling depending on how dehydrated it is, but it won't smell really strong. And of course, you'll start recognizing you have different scents for different stuff,
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's a good way to kind of get to know yourself, because I've noticed that, most of the time I really can't smell anything, but then if I get like, really nervous or like anxious.
Yeah, if I
or
get like
stressed,
a strong stress, it gets a strong smell, and I get like a wet feeling in my armpits. And
yeah, you can definitely smell it. It's the same thing if you get like sexually aroused or something. There's a different smell for that.
Smell, yeah. And if you fast a lot, I've noticed I have a smell when I fast a long time.
It's probably like a detox thing, maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah. But it's all just listening to your body.
So I think those are kind of the major things. Is there anything else you can think of to help your, gut bacteria or your skin bacteria or your disease resistance?
No, I don't think so. That's what I would say. And I mean, I would also, welcome everybody to write in the comments what they do to try to help their microbiome. I'll make sure that Briar logs on there and she puts a comment down too, so that we can see what she does. But I think that all of that stuff's important, so make sure you stay away from sugar, have a good diet, you go outside, get dirty, and stay away from antibiotics, eat fermented food. All that stuff would be great improvements of
eat mushrooms as far as the disease.
Yeah.
Things like chaga and reishi, even just like shiitake and stuff like that.
Well, any of them, like cordyceps,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, you could buy shiitake mushrooms from the store, and again, with mushrooms, it depends on what they're grown on, but you can buy them from the store and make a decoction, and that will be a lot better than not taking it,
Yeah,
It'll
you can buy a
actually
tincture. I
modulate
mean,
it.
lots of people buy or sell tinctures, mushroom
Yeah,
tinctures.
that's something else. If you check your local farmers markets, this is becoming more widespread. There's I forget the name of the company. There's a mushroom company.
North Cove Mushrooms.
North Cove, yeah, who sells mushrooms at our local farmers market. I think they sell up and around DC area too, but they actually sell tinctures. They sell a lot of stuff really. They have like lion's mane and oysters and they had morels one time and chanterelles I've seen before. They had the tincture. They had something else too. Can't remember what. But they've got other products. It's really good, and they're a local company.
Yeah, for us.
For us, yeah. Yeah, well, thank you for coming on here and talking again.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. We'll have to do something else sometime, you're full of insight and knowledge that I don't carry. I let you handle some stuff because this world becomes so vast. I can't keep track of everything, but I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, and I'd say the same of you.
Yeah.
We kind of have slightly different areas of, interest and I guess knowledge. So, and it kind of overlaps a lot, but
yeah,
we kind of supplement each other.
Yeah, and we'll put all of this stuff in the show notes. And yeah, so thank you again for coming on, Briar. And I guess I'll talk to everybody next week, right? And figure out what kind of fun topic we're going to have and see who else we can get on here. All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
I also wanted to tell everyone who wanted to support this show, please head over to my website, Human Atavist, that's HUMANATAVI.ST, and just donate $1. That helps keep this podcast going. Just one more thing. I wanted to remind everybody to head over to facebook.com/humanatavist to hook up over there. My Twitter handle is humanatavist @humanatavist. And I have a YouTube channel at Human Atavist. Please go check it out. I appreciate everything, guys, and I'll see you next time.